Hello friends, welcome back to the bench. Let's do some coding today, shall we? Now, our last session was quite a while ago, so I had to kind of refresh my memory, just kind of think what I was working on. I could as well just review the footage, but who's got time for watching my videos? Not me. What I did off camera, I imported SB admin, the version that I just pulled all the CSS and JS files and the HTML into the layout, and we have first page my tickets, which uses that. But before we can get there, what I've been working on is ticket page, meaning after the user submits the ticket, there's got to be a conversation going, right? So this is my vision. That's how I envision it works. So this was the reply. So the customer submitted this, right? Now the shop employee will, the response is going to be shown here. Now, as soon as you enter the page, I get feedback that the page has been viewed, but on top of that, you can click acknowledge. So that's going to be another thing that the user, instead of writing, okay, thank you, or stuff like that, the user can just hit acknowledge, right? On top of that, I want a reply button, which will be especially, well, I'm not sure. In my case, that might not be like a key feature, so perhaps I will push this functionality a little for a little later stage, because definitely it isn't crucial. But I was just kind of thinking of new features. This is kind of a actually, when you see this page, right, you can see that it kind of mimics the chatting application like WhatsApp or something like that. And the shop employees on the left, and your, as a customer, your responses on the right, right? Now it's pretty simple actually to implement the reply button. I'm gonna have the hidden input over here that will be filled when you click this button, and some message that you're replying to this message. Now I figured that might be useful when there are some questions or something in this conversation, but it just kind of, you just noticed that it's like 3 conversations before, like 3 messages into the past, and you want to respond to that. So it's kind of like if you just copy pasted the quote, right? So this is a low-hanging fruit for today. That's what I want to have achieved. So we don't do the admin yet. The scope, which one was it? Ticket ID, right? That's in tickets controller over here, and that is our ticket, right? So at the moment, this is only a get request only is supported. Actually, let's see. No, it's connected. So we can handle get and post. So what we could do is, in either case, we need to fetch the ticket, right? And here what we could do is just do if this get request is post, no, is post, right? So where the user has submitted something, right? In many cases, this is a good approach, because then we just re-render the page, right? And maybe that's handle request. Handle user response to the ticket. But since there's going to be a few buttons like acknowledge will be an AJAX call to just acknowledge and maybe refresh the page, or maybe the JavaScript will just acknowledge that and refresh just basically remove that button, right? Because once you hit acknowledge, the button disappears. On the other hand, we do want to have, because suppose the AJAX call failed, you lost the internet connection, and your page no longer represents what's actually submitted to the backend. We'll see. It doesn't have to be that redundant, although I do want the system to just kind of support even larger shops, not only tiny little shops like mine. But before we get there, first we need to decide what to use for responses. So we have tickets, right, with 9 columns. Email, subject, description, address ID, and do we have addresses? No. We'll see. But I guess, yeah, so we do have to have the address entity, which will hold the address, or perhaps multiple of them. So perhaps we don't need the address ID, we just need oh, I remember now, yeah, because we wanted to reuse the address. Because in this case, if you submit multiple addresses, the address entity may have the ticket ID, which ticket it is relating to, in which case we have one-to-many relation, so each ticket can have multiple addresses. Probably what I was thinking, billing address, shipping address, whatever. But we don't really need that. So probably address, yeah, we'll probably leave it as one-to-one relation, I guess. Yeah, there's gonna be an address once you submit it, and basically the idea, yeah, I remember now, the idea was to just reuse the address. So if you're submitting the ticket for the 5th time, we should already have all that information and make it easy on you. You just have to log in or something. Just basically authenticate or authorize to the ticket submission page, and your address should be pre-filled. The customer experience is always most important. But now, to handle those responses, we need the responses entity. So let's bake payments. Let's bake the model. No, not the model, the migration. So let's do php bin cake.php bake migration, and we'll call it ticket responses. Probably before the first deployment of the new ticketing system, I will merge all the migrations into one migration, because why would we need, if the system hasn't been used anywhere yet, then that's going to be an initial migration. So it's not even going to be a migration, it's just going to be plain deployment. Ticket responses, and let's Control Alt A. Yes. So table will be, how did we do it? We did it in bhr config, right? The table names, yes, database tables. So let's call it ticket ticket responses. And now the reason I want to have this is because you might be working with already existing database. I mean, it is BHR prefixed, but for whatever reason you might want to change the names of the tables. I mean, usually even if you work alongside the other system, you'll most likely just have a separate schema for this application, or for each application. You don't want those tables mixed up in one schema, most likely. But as you can see, I'm running along with the Hesk, and Hesk has its own tables, and which are over here, as you can see, they are Hesk prefixed as well. That's kind of a legacy feature, or legacy thing to do prefixes to the tables. That's nowadays we use much better practices. So that will be ticket responses. So we want the name. Oh, how do we see? I forgot. Let's go to config migrations, and let's do users. Yeah, configure read. Like this. So this is optional because we always have the default, which will be ticket responses, right? Tables, ticket responses. There, and that's our table. So just, you know, let's do it this way. So the configuration is at this point optional. You have an ability to rename the table, but you don't have to. And so let's add columns. Our first column, so ID will be automatically made. Let's add timestamps and leave them like that. This will be create, so let's leave it like that. So first column, that's gonna be a foreign key, right? Is ticket ID. And let's add foreign key and columns. This can be a string or array of strings, so ticket ID. And ticket ID. But how do we, let's see, and we have ticket ID and ID. So we want to, so our ticket ID will be an end. So we're not going to be referencing the ticket ID, which is a tracking ID, right? The tracking ID that the user uses, and the ID that we use here, right? So that is a tracking ID, but on top of that we have the actual ticket ID. So our referenced table will be, and we need to read it from the configuration again. So let's go to payments, BHR tickets. Let's just copy all this. This probably could have been moved to some more centralized place so we can reuse it more easily, but let's have the, so for now let's have it that way. Okay, so we have a column ticket ID, which is a foreign key relation 1-to-1 or many-to-1 from this table's standpoint. Now what we need is the actual message. So let's call it message. Now this will be a response, either the response that the repair shop provides for the ticket, or the customer. So we need to differentiate between those two. On our page it looks like this. And how do we, let's take a look at that. So we don't need these. Let's close the database. And tickets, right? So this is how I envision the data. So we have responses, we have an ID of the response. I'm not sure what I was thinking here. We have a message. As you can see, my message is right, written like this, but on the page it shows up like this, right? So no blank line, and right, one blank line below and all that, and here it shows as a string. So we need to convert that. The name acknowledged flag, whether the message has been acknowledged or not, and that would happen after you click the button. I have name over here. So let's first identify whether this is the ticket or response created by the employee, by the repair shop. How are we gonna name it? Perhaps is well, we can do it in two ways. Either Boolean flag, is this response from the repair shop or from the client? So is it from the repair shop? If it's false, then it's from the client. If it's true, it's from the repair shop. Or we can have a field or a column that describes, you know, what it is, and basically the enum that says it's a repair shop, the, I don't know, customer service or whatever. So is employee, this will be Boolean, and default will be false. Then add column name, right? This will be string, and limit on it would be maybe 120 characters. Well, not exactly characters, but it's a long story in multi-byte versions. We have timestamps. Okay, is acknowledged, which will be Boolean, and default will be false. And so if it's a response, right, if the user hit reply on this, then we want to have the response ID which this pertains to. So let's call it response ID. It can be nullable, and it will default to null. For that reason, we're not going to put the foreign key here, because it is optional, right? It might be a response, it doesn't have to be. And do we need anything else? No, it looks like this should suffice. I think this will be good. Yeah. Okay. So now let's run migrations. And oh, what happened there? Argument 2 passed to get colon for type null given. That is what, our foreign relation. What did we mess up over here? Oh, okay, hang on. So ticket ID, so that's right, integer, and this is ticket ID. This is not nullable because ticket ID ticket needs to exist for the response to be you know, integral. And the message is text, right? Let's see the description on the ticket we did as a name subject, description as text. Okay, and we don't allow nulls. And here in the message we probably also shouldn't allow nulls. Oops. All right, and that's it. Okay, now we can migrate. Come on. Okay, so once we migrated, let's bake model. So it's bhr ticket responses. Okay, so let's go to the source model entity here and blah blah blah. Added. And the table name also needs to come from the configuration. Oops, I copied something else. So let's read it from the config. There. We have a foreign key, join type inner. No, that's not correct. Oh no, it is correct. Yes, because from this perspective, this is kind of like a one-to-one relation, but it's actually one-to-many from the perspective of the ticket. Ticket will have multiple responses, but when we fetch the ticket response, just one response, then it's gonna have one ticket, one and only one ticket, and it's required. Okay, validation and the rule ticket must exist. Perfect. So once we have that, for now let's just assume this works. So ticketing service, we have fetch responses, which is returns an array. Shall we use the entities? Well, we probably can. So let's return ticket response. App model bhr ticket response, and that's an array. So that's what we wanna fetch. So this fetch database fetch table vhr ticket responses, and we want to fetch all the responses, so we're gonna use find where ticket ID is ticket get ticket ID, but this is string. This is string, and so let's go to ticket first, and here record ID. We do have a record ID, but we don't have a getter for it. So we do have a getter for it. Yes, get record ID there. Get record ID, and we want all of them and to array, and we're just gonna return that. So plain and simple. But before we want to have a method that will submit the response. Submit response for the ticket, and the response will have we didn't do the user ID on the ticket, right? Just the name, and that will will that suffice? You know what, I'll address that later. Let's just add a to do. Where should we add a to do? To do that's txt. Let's add a user ID relation to the ticket response to allow finding responses for an employee, right? So we'll address that. So first we definitely need a message. Other than message, we want, so do we now provide the user name? Name. So this will be auto-filled when the user is logged in, then and I will pull the, no, actually we don't have to, do we? Because we do need to differentiate between the user and the employee. So the name, let's leave the name alone now. It's gonna be employee. So first you tell us whether it's an employee. If it's an employee, we need the name. If it's not, we don't need the name, because the name will be pulled from the ticket. It's gonna be the author's name. So we can do optional name, and that's it for now. This will return a void, so it will not return. And here this will be simple, so let's introduce a local variable. So entity will be table new entity. Oops. And we'll have ticket ID will be ticket get record ID. Message will be message. Name will be name or ticket get name. Is that the name? No, that's the name of the ticket. Do we not have the name? Oops. Because this is the U road, right? Right, so if this is not an employee, yes, name nullable. Let's check again. Is name nullable? It is not, so let's fix that right now. So this is null if it's not an employee, right? If it is an employee, then we want a name of the employee, because otherwise it's just going to say, you know, this was submitted by the user. So at the moment this will not work because I modified the migration, and this will not be applied to the actual database. So this will not work for now. But that's fine. Well, I just need to redeploy the migration. But before I do that, I'll just fix the other things. Employee, and that was is employee, right? Will be employee here. We have the message, and oh, and we forgot whether it's a int response, right? What did I call it? Response ID. Response ID. Yeah. We probably should use not an integer. We should use the actual response object. Yeah, I'll leave it like that for now, but that's what it's supposed to be. But for the sake of simplicity, I'll just use it like that. And this oh, not this. That's why I introduced a variable, so I don't have to do that again. We'll do save entity. If it's false, we'll throw. And what do we throw here? Where are my exceptions? Do I not have exceptions? That's weird. I usually add that relatively early. We want a dedicated exception, which will be cannot. Do we need dedicated for this particular thing? Yeah, why not? Right? Cannot store response I. Okay. this will extend the exception. And that'll do. Cannot store response. Response to the ticket cannot be stored. Check logs. Obviously that's something that you would do. And let's mark it as throwing exception. So this will now theoretically, it will not, because of that what was it, name that is nullable, because right now the name, yeah, that will be null. But we have a first method here that will store our responses. So now if we do encounter post, that's why I like to keep them separate, because now this method will just kind of grow. But this set responses ticketing service fetch responses for this ticket, right? So it happens after the posting, so it will always include responses that were submitted. So that's one reason why to keep it in the same action. You don't have to redirect, and also it's easier because if you have a form, you can you don't have to use the session or whatever you would have to use, maybe some cache, maybe whatever, to transfer that data, that form data, between two actions. Right, because if you're filling in the form and you're submitting it, something was wrong, you're redirected back to the form, you want all that stuff that you already entered to be there. This is an issue on our submit ticket page because we're using two different actions, one for rendering the page, the other for submitting the form. Okay, so that is one issue that we have there. Simple solution, move it to a single action. And we are using a form. So what we need is a ticket. No, we don't need, because we have the ticket from the request parameter. We need a message. We need response ID optional. I'm gonna call it like this. Why not? So response ID will be, yeah, this will be optional, and default is null. So yeah, this is redundant. And ticketing service submit response and ticket message employee false, because here we're handling a request that the user does. The shop employee will not use that side of the system to submitting responses. Instead, the employee will use the administration panel, which means our name is null and our response ID is here. And that's it. Now the only thing that we need is to catch that exception, because we don't want, if that exception throws, we don't want to just present the 500 to the user. We want to present some message or something. but let's add it to do. Let's submit response handle exception. That way I don't have to worry about stuff. I can just keep going and you know, and then figure out the rest later. So this will not work because of that migration. But before we even go there, so let's remove our responses here. Let's add a variable responses, which will be not middleware. What was it? App model? No, app entity. Okay, app model entity. And this is BHR ticket response, but it's an array. Okay, so now for each responses as response, so response. So this tells us if it's my response or not. So my response is empty response is employee, but not empty, but rather not is employee. So if it's not employee, this is my response, meaning the user's response. That's what it changes the border and all that kind of stuff. Now if it's my response, it's you. If it's not, it's response name, right? The shop name and wrote on, and here we need response created at. This should be returned as a string. No, it's going to be returned as a frozen time, right? Yes. Format year, month, day, hour, minute, second. I believe that's how you format it. Now the message, response message, if not my response, response acknowledged is acknowledged, right? If it's not acknowledged, we show acknowledge button, otherwise we don't. And yeah, so now we have a button which is submit, but we don't have a form. Do we? No. So let's create the form over here. So this is element which is text area, and now we need hidden input. So let's go to our elements, element flash, submit ticket form, input, and I think we had a hidden option here. We don't. So let's add hidden input, and type text, because yeah, in this case it'll be integer or empty string. And are we gonna render it? Maybe I'm not even gonna render it, so I'm not even gonna send it to the backend, so it remains null, because otherwise it's gonna be empty string, which will not evaluate as null. It will evaluate as empty, but not as null. Type, let's do, I do have a Bootstrap. Bootstrap allows you to Bootstrap allows you to hide, but again I forgot those. Next button, float end. Yeah, I'm gonna have to refresh my memory on the Bootstrap, but for now let's just do the style display none. Oops. Display none, and name, very important. Name, right? Yes, and we don't need, so for that reason, that's why I'm not reusing this. I'm not reusing input, because we have a label for the input and even some info underneath. And here we just want the hidden input with the name. And oops. And value will be value. So we just need name and value, which means on the ticket we want this element submit ticket form hidden input, and name will be ticket ID, and value will be null for now. Okay, and we need a form. So let's do the form. This form, was it? Yeah. And the first one was null, and yeah. And this form and this form. Oops. Form. What was it? End? End or finish? Let's see. On the admin email layout pages, ticket, submit ticket, form end. Okay. Oh, but form create. Okay. So we don't just, we don't just do form. No, we want form create. And we, okay, now we can roughly see if it's gonna crash, if everything's gonna be found. Now you can see that we don't have any responses because there are no responses. So our first response would be submitted here. But this shouldn't work because our name is null and we don't allow nulls. And oh, we didn't even submit. So let's see what's the problem here. Oh, that's the problem. Okay. Oops. Oh, no, come on. There. My son always used to do that when he was a kid. He would flip the screen, and I could not for the life of me figure out how he did it. And the shortcut is Control Alt and up and down, or left and right. He would always do that. And I knew how to, revert it using the, mouse and properties and stuff, right? You go to the screen preferences and you revert that, but I can figure out how does he do it, like every time. And for some reason I cannot move this lower, so I'll just do it this way. And let's refresh this. And response and reply, and that worked. And argument 2 passed to submit must be a type of string, null given. The second argument is a message. So is our name, name is response instead of message. That's why. And we should, let's do that in tickets controller. So if our message is empty, and it is flash error, message cannot be empty, and if not empty, message. Now why do I do it this way? The reason is simple, I just don't want to use else. So in this case it kinda, this serves as else. And there's better ways to solve that, but for now we just need to have some results. So now if we submit empty, we should get a message cannot be empty. But if the message is not empty, this should, yes, response to the ticket cannot be stored. Why cannot be stored? Why can it not be stored? Because in the tickets table, ticket responses table, we have rules that the validation, that the name, not empty string, require presence and not empty string, because I added that null later. But now if I just change it here, the database will still require presence because it is not null. So right now it's the validation default or validation rules, when we run validate on it, it will return false, and when it returns false, it doesn't even try to write it to the database. It just gives you it returns false, and it won't store it. So now if we just fixed it on the table class, it still won't work because the database itself will not be able to store the record. So we'll fix that in the next session. For now we have, so that was our low-hanging fruit. The user can submit the ticket, and user can get to this page and submit response. But one last thing that needs to be done on this page, and first I need to figure out how to do it, is to prevent just anyone from entering this page, because not, the ticket ID, the ticket tracking number, this is a public information. So if someone stole it, or someone just knows it, someone can just go to this page and perhaps see your address, your name, PII basically. So this would be considered PII leak. So first I need to figure out how to protect it. I mean, the answer is relatively simple. We just need to verify an email address. But on top of that, I want to use some kind of token authentication or token authorization. that will store the cookie on the machine, and you can just, every time you can just go to the ticket and work on that ticket if you're using the same machine. Otherwise, in the email, the link to the ticket has that secret token that is perhaps one-time use or is refreshed every time, that you can always get to that. You can always get to that ticket from the link. Again, the user experience, very important for us here. It needs to be nicely usable. But that'll do it for this session. Not very exciting, but we got something done. I'm gonna push it now and start thinking of the next steps. Also, on a personal note, today is my day 3 of searching for a job, and so far I got 3 rejections. That's it. Not a single phone call. So the market out there is horrible. Absolutely horrible. So if you have a job coding, don't quit until you find another job, because it's not as it used to be 3 years ago or just a couple years ago. Now it's all AI. All right, thank you guys very much for watching, and I shall see you in the next one.